Making headlines for this week of January the 12th. Slur scandal. Media meltdown over alleged comments highlights hypocrisy and ethical failure. Army audit. Hint of things to come as auditors have already identified mass amounts of missing funds and more. E.T. whisperer. Clifford Stone in interview reveals ETs are not to be feared and explores the Prime Directive. And Back to the Future. Technology allows us to become younger, but there are risks, rewards, and consequences.
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Greetings and blessings to all. Last week, the media was all over the alleged feud between Trump and Steve Bannon. Even though we may not still see the final result of this little charade until sometime later, the media has moved on to its next flavor of the week, and this is the alleged comments by Trump that some countries are, I shall leave that expletive deleted. A lot of attention is being focused on incidents and language that promote further fear and separation. The U.S. media is desperately trying to get some kind of charge to stick to President Trump. It may seem he is starting to get too close to completing his draining of the swamp. Upon coming out from a closed meeting at the White House where no recording devices were allowed, one or two sources so far have alleged President Trump as making a specific derogatory remark about people coming from Haiti, El Salvador, and African countries in particular. CNN and other mainstream media have gone into meltdown, airing the alleged quote consistently with the profanity, even though there is no direct recording of the quote as having been made. This strikes me as particularly odd about journalism ethics, as it applies to this particular story. I observe that these are countries that have been specifically targeted and destroyed by Western interests in the past. So if the media were to start reporting on these countries, trying to dig up more dirt on Trump, what they may find more likely is the involvement of the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton State Department as having committed untold crimes in those countries that have, until now, been covered up. The irony, however, is that according to an article published on RT, there were at least 7 times when critics of Trump basically described Russia in a similar way, and even worse, without using those exact words. The media and no one else cared about this, however. Republican Senator John McCain, referring to Russia, is quoted as saying Russia is a gas station masquerading as a country. TV host Keith Olbermann, referring to hockey player Alex Ovechkin's endorsement of President Putin for the upcoming election, said maybe Ovechkin should be thrown out of this league and forced to go back and skate with Putin in that hellhole. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham in 2009 and 2014, a one-man dictatorship with an economy the size of Italy that is playing a poker game with a pair of twos. Tim Wise, prominent anti-racism activist, in a tweet from 2016. With each new day, I know why part of my family left that bleep hole of Imperial Russia. 100 years after last revolution, let's hope for another one. Barack Obama, in comments to The Economist in 2014, Russia doesn't make anything. Immigrants aren't rushing to Moscow in search of opportunity. The life expectancy of the Russian male is around 60 years old. The population is shrinking. Josh Marshall, Talking Points Memo political blog founder, in 2016. Xenophobic paranoia and a gravitation towards autocracy are embedded in the cultural DNA of Russians. And Josh Barrow, business editor and senior editor and MSNBC commentator, a dystopic crap hole since the dawn of history, adding in another later deleted tweet, it's amazing how much national pride Russians have given how little they have to be proud of. What better way to troll the media into digging more deeply into these countries and what has happened there than by making a very specific remark that may not even have been said? Perhaps the idea and the plan was to have someone leak the alleged comment, only to have it disproven later after all truth comes out about why certain countries are in such a sad state of affairs. It will all very likely come back to the Clinton Foundation. So it seems the media may have taken the bait once again. In an update to this story on January 12th, the media are apparently shamed once again, as Tom Cotton reveals what really happened in the meeting with Trump. An article on the Subject Politics website lists numerous people who criticized Trump's alleged comments. At the same time, however, Senators Tom Cotton and David Perdue were in the room, and according to this article, delivered a statement as follows. President Trump brought everyone to the table this week and listened to both sides. But, regrettably, it seems that not everyone is committed to negotiating in good faith. In regard to Senator Durbin's accusation, we do not recall the president saying these comments specifically, but what he did call out was the imbalance in our current immigration system, which does not protect American workers and our national interest. We, along with the president, are committed to solving an issue many in Congress have failed to deliver on for decades. So, the racist card is being played against Trump with one apparent agenda. The agenda is ignored when comments are made against Russia, and yet the same card is being played in Europe while also getting media attention. An article by Christine Douglas-Williams, appearing on the jihadwatch.org website, reported on January 11th that Guy Verhofstadt, the president of the European Parliament, is accusing Poland and Hungary of being illiberal and working contrary to traditional values. He stated, the European Union was built to guarantee our citizens freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. All true, the article continues, but Poland and Hungary are trying to preserve these values. It is the EU that has been bullying these noble countries into surrendering these values to Islamic supremacists. With that surrender comes chaos. Ever since Europe abandoned its reasoned practices of carefully restricted immigration in favor of suicidal open immigration policies, it has dealt with burgeoning crime, jihad attacks, infiltration by the Islamic State, returning Islamic State fighters, diminished freedom of speech, Sharia courts in the UK, unstable economies, increasingly aggressive anti-Semitism, Sharia patrols, no-go zones, and cultural practices unbefitting to democratic states. Guy Verhofstadt is a confused man, the article continues. He refers to Poland and Hungary's nationalist values as racist for trying to protect traditions of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. He and others like him are disconcertingly reminiscent of Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi minister of propaganda. Goebbels worked from the dictum that if you keep telling a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Verhofstadt has been outspoken in stating that right-wing Hungary and Poland must accept liberal values or leave the bloc. He was quoted in another article by Liam Deacon of Breitbart as saying, "There is no place in our union for countries who take EU money, who want to participate in the single market, but who reject our shared values. We should be wary of narratives based on the defense of so-called national values, which are used to mask racist hate campaigns, fueling anxiety against immigrants and refugees." The game appears to be quickly approaching some kind of climax given the rate of different stories coming out at this time, with the reports of the emergency alert system in Hawaii on January 13th. For about 30 minutes, the island was described by Global News in Canada as being more confused than chaotic. After the 30 minutes, a follow-up message was sent out over the network that it was a false alarm and that there was no threat. Possibly ironic that Hawaii would be used as the false flag point once again for a global conflict. The message that appeared on screens and mobiles across the state specifically identified a ballistic missile coming from North Korea as being the source, so this lends credibility to the argument that there was a plan in place to create a false flag attack on Hawaii as justification for a conflict with North Korea. The early warning sirens, however, did not go off. Perhaps there are two possibilities at least here. Maybe the good military launched a dud missile to activate the alarm system and get the media attention focused on this event. Probably unlikely. Another source who posts on social media pages about the alleged global currency reset made a claim that his or her sources reported the following. Yesterday, January 12th, an anomaly was detected off the coast of Hawaii, which held off the release or the alleged release of global currencies. Sources have confirmed that the false alarm today in Hawaii was a cover story. The attack was real. The media had their North Korea attacks the Hawaiian Islands story preemptively ready. The cabal panicked when the attack failed. A cover story was shortly made up, and the attack was branded as a false alarm. The emergency broadcast system does not lie. Someone pressing the wrong button simply does not happen. This was another cabal attempt to derail the transition process by fabricating a war. Missile launches were detected in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Hawaii. The launches originated from the same anomaly detected yesterday, January 12th, and this is the source continuing. The missiles were immediately intercepted and destroyed. The anomaly was a nuclear stealth submarine. The nuclear stealth submarine was located and destroyed shortly after the attempted attack. Planetary scans did not detect any anomalies 2 days ago on the 11th. The Alliance believes the submarine originated from another deep underground military base located somewhere in the Pacific, and the Alliance is allegedly now actively seeking out that deep underground military base. I emphasize that this information and the source have not been validated, even though there is some logic to the information that was shared. Perhaps the media will be forced to acknowledge that it was a rogue submarine, and this revelation will blow more truth onto the global stage. Numerous very high-level military sources connected to the Disclosure Project, set up by Dr. Stephen Greer, have spoken of ET interference when it comes to nuclear missiles. It is conceivably possible that there was ET interference in this case to prevent nuclear missiles from being used, and there'll be a little bit more on that coming up later in the newscast. In other geopolitical news, it may be safe to say that there are some governments around the world that may be starting to feel a bit more nervous now that a formal probe has been launched into the actions of the Clinton Foundation. On the 5th and 6th of January, it has been reported that both the U.S. Justice Department and the FBI have been involved in probes relating to the Clinton Foundation offering political favors in exchange for donations to the foundation. On January 12th, a source known as Magapil reported on some of the sealed indictments being opened, more so in connection with Uranium-1, which is the link between the Clintons, their foundation, and Russia, not the alleged collusion between President Trump and Russia. According to this article, an executive of a Maryland-based transportation company allegedly paid bribes to officials from Russia, which enabled him to obtain highly sensitive nuclear fuel transportation contracts. Some people think that the sealed indictments are a coordinated effort to bring down an elite pedophile ring that involves many across the government, Hollywood, and mainstream media. The indictments that were unsealed today, however, have to do with Uranium-1. The same Uranium-1 that Hillary Clinton just happened to receive several millions of dollars into the Clinton Foundation while she oversaw the deal being approved. Ekaterina Blinova, writing for Sputnik News on January the 11th, reports how the net closing in on the Clintons could be making many Western governments nervous. Blinova writes that a new FBI probe into the Clinton Foundation should send an alarming signal to foreign governments and individuals who have provided donations to the charity over the past 2 decades, Wall Street analyst and investigative journalist Charles Ortel told Sputnik. Numerous governments have sent substantial sums towards the Clinton Foundation, yet to date, the Clinton Foundation refuses to account publicly, as is required, for specifics concerning each government donation. State laws in New York and California require this. For example, As to why foreign governments turn a blind eye to the alleged fraud committed by the Clinton Foundation, Ortel was also quoted as having said that the numerous foreign governments that seem to be associated with Clinton charities have behaved deplorably, Ortel told Sputnik in August of 2017, suggesting that they apparently realized that a thorough investigation into the matter could result in acute embarrassment and even legal exposures for individuals and foreign governments involved. Some of the countries that may be exposed in this probe include France, UK, Norway, Spain, South Korea, Australia, Ireland, Saudi Arabia, Sweden, and Canada. Even the Bill Gates Foundation has sent more than $600 million to the part of the Clinton Foundation that allegedly deals with fighting AIDS. However, coming up on January 15th, an article on Zero Hedge is reporting that the DOJ's internal watchdog, the Office of the Inspector General, or the OIG, is expected to present their findings to congressional investigators regarding a wide variety of alleged bias and malfeasance by the FBI, the Clinton campaign, and the Obama administrations, both during and after the 2016 election. Moreover, the man heading up the OIG investigation, Michael Horowitz, fought the Obama administration to regain investigative powers, which were restricted by former Attorney General Eric Holder during the Fast and Furious scandal. This highly anticipated report is likely to be the legal impetus behind a second special counsel. According to the article, here are a few things being done while the mainstream media is focused on Bannon and on racism by Trump and North Korea. The DOJ is taking a fresh look into the Hillary Clinton email matter. The FBI has launched a new investigation into the Clinton Foundation the day after the Clintons' Chappaqua property caught fire. Former FBI Director James Comey's full Clinton memo was released, revealing felony evidence of changes which decriminalized Hillary Clinton's behavior. Every one of the memos he leaked to his Cornell professor buddy were classified per a sworn statement by the FBI's Chief Freedom of Information Officer in a sworn declaration obtained by Judicial Watch. The House Intelligence Committee will be granted access to all remaining investigative documents, unredacted, along with all witnesses sought per a deal reached between Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and Nunes. Opposition research firm Fusion GPS was forced to hand over banking records detailing various clients and their intermediary law firms, including the Clinton Foundation and a Russian money launderer whose lawyer was none other than Natalia Veselnitskaya of Trump Tower meeting fame. All that was in the Zero Hedge article. It is starting to get a bit too hot in the kitchen now, perhaps. According to TheWeek.com, a grand total so far of 31 House Republicans are not planning to seek re-election in November. The average is usually around 22. So the weapons of mass distraction continue, with the mainstream media continuing to make a mockery of themselves. Rumors have been circulating that Julian Assange may have been extracted from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, although this has not been fully confirmed. One source, Sorcha Fall, has posted an article outlining the timeline of recent events that appear to be linked to what is happening with Assange. I am aware that many do not trust this source, Sorcha Fall, and I am as well keeping my discernment where this information is concerned. The timeline of info, however, presents at least one somewhat convincing argument for why certain things have happened recently and how they may be linked. What is also hinted at here is what I have personally believed, that Trump and Putin are working together on some level to take down the worldwide global cabal. The article begins by offering information about a tensely worded new Foreign Intelligence Service report circulating in the Kremlin that states that within hours of elite Russian Spetsnaz forces obliterating the CIA base in Syria behind a plot to assassinate President Donald Trump, WikiLeaks leader Julian Assange posted to his Twitter account the long-awaited martial attack message, signaling his acceptance of Trump's terms, and that has now left the entire world holding its breath in fear as to how the American shadow government deep state will respond. The article continues, according to this report, Julian Assange is a long-time known U.S. intelligence operative, whose WikiLeaks whistleblowing website is a CIA-created and operated deep cover organization that had split with the deep state, and whose factional war embroiled the 2016 U.S. presidential election by their releasing tens of thousands of Hillary Clinton and Democratic Party emails, and who, also after Trump won, began releasing some of the CIA's most hidden secrets. In fearing that Julian Assange would begin posting further CIA secrets, this report details, President Trump began planning to free him from his forced deep state confinement in London's Ecuadorian embassy, but with the plan eventually meeting failure when, on December 25th, the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence posted to the U.S. Navy Twitter account the words, Julian Assange, thus signaling that they were preparing at all costs to keep Trump from freeing Assange. In fearing that President Trump was going back on his word to free him after the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence posted their ominous December 25th Julian Assange warning tweet, this report continues. Several days later, on January 1st, Julian Assange posted a cryptic tweet featuring a 60-character code along with a link to the music video Paper Planes, a code referring to a dead man's switch intended to trigger the release of documents in the event of his death. In response to Julian Assange's January 1st warning, this report notes, President Trump on January 3rd shocked the deep state to its very core by releasing the bombshell news that he had just authorized his attorneys to file a motion in U.S. federal court absolving Assange of committing any crimes against the United States. With President Trump in his shocking U.S. federal court filing showing Julian Assange that he still intended to free him, this report continues, the next plan to accomplish this feat involved Ecuador granting Assange citizenship and diplomatic immunity, but that the deep state thwarted this by getting London to say that they would not honor Assange's diplomatic immunity. Recently, Trump canceled plans to visit London, and this article speculates on one of the reasons why Trump may have gone there. The article writes that President Trump didn't fear London as he knew that his official state car is covered under the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, whose diplomatic immunity includes not only embassies, but also diplomatic vehicles, houses, and offices, thus meaning that a U.S. official state car could enter into the Ecuador embassy compound in London, meaning a sovereign territory, take as a passenger Assange, who is diplomatically immune, then transfer him to the sovereign U.S. territory of Air Force One, step from the car to the aircraft stairs, all of which would entail Assange never having to step a foot upon UK or EU soil. By the way, this high-level transfer tactic was perfected by the U.S. and Soviet Union during the Cold War for spies discovered in a host country in order to prevent their prosecution publicly. This high-level transfer of Julian Assange to the United States, this report further details, was due to take place during Trump's visit to London next week, but that Trump had to abruptly cancel after Russia discovered the deep state was planning to assassinate him while he was there, using bomb-laden combat UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. The U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence and CIA were perfecting the deployment of in Syria. With Trump's false flag death then being blamed on radical Islamic terrorists, that would most assuredly ignite World War III that the deep state desperately needs to cover up their soon-to-be-revealed crimes. With President Putin knowing full well what the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence and the CIA were planning, they responded publicly by simply stating, "We know who you are." This report continues, Putin ordered elite elements within the feared 3rd Guards Spetsnaz Nas Brigade, the world's most efficient killers, to immediately deploy to Syria, and who, within 72 hours, located the main CIA base where terrorists were using, and they obliterated it, killing all of its top commanders and destroying their combat UAV storage depot. Within hours of President Trump receiving confirmation that this ONI CIA base in Syria was destroyed, this report notes further communications were made between the U.S. and Julian Assange, and that Assange replied by posting to his Twitter account a photograph containing a chessboard, unaccompanied by any text, showing a move from the Casablanca versus Marshall chess game of 1918, considered one of the greatest defensive games of all time, known as the Marshall Attack, and prompting suggestions that Assange is preparing a checkmate. Finally, the article closes with this. With the deep state becoming so desperate in their trying to keep the fake Trump-Russia collusion story alive, this report concludes U.S. intelligence operative Julian Assange represents their gravest threat and is due to him having written and videotaped evidence proving that the late Democratic Party data analyst Seth Rich, not Russia, leaked all of the emails to WikiLeaks, and for which Rich was promptly murdered immediately after meeting with the top aide of the Democratic Party leader Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and that has the Democratic Party to this very day still refusing to release the links they have between Rich and WikiLeaks. If the contents of this report are accurate, it paints an intriguing picture of what is potentially to come in terms of more truth being revealed. In a separate but perhaps related story, Chelsea Manning, the former U.S. soldier who leaked the original files to Assange and who was released from prison for that so-called crime, has announced that she is planning to seek a Democratic Senate seat in her home state of Maryland in the November elections this year. Perhaps Manning is hoping to become a force and a face for change within this party once all the swamp creatures have been drained. In a bit of financial news, reports are already beginning to come out regarding the audit of the U.S. Department of Defense that was recently started, according to a Zero Hedge article on January the 11th. On Wednesday, the Defense Department Comptroller David Nordquist told lawmakers in Washington that the DoD's first-ever department-wide audit will cost about $367 million in 2018 and an additional $551 million to fix the problems. Nordquist, who testified before the House Armed Services Committee, said Defense Secretary James Mathis and Deputy Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan are in full support of the audit. Back in May of 2017, President Trump appointed Nordquist to finally put the military's financial house back in order after many years of delays. What is surprising, if only in retrospect, is that according to the World Economic Forum, the U.S. Department of Defense has been named the largest employer in the world, with some 3.2 million members on its payroll and $2.4 trillion in assets, but has never administered a full audit. This is the first time the department will undergo a full financial statement audit, he said. A financial statement audit is comprehensive and occurs annually, and it covers more than financial management, Nordquist explained to lawmakers. The purpose of the audit will document military equipment and real property, along with condition and location. It tests the vulnerability of our security systems, and it validates the accuracy of personnel records and actions, Nordquist said. Nordquist did offer a preview of what is to come. The article writes that an initial Army audit found 39 UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters worth an estimated $830.7 million were not adequately recorded in the property system. The Air Force identified 478 structures and buildings at 12 installations that were not in its real property system, he added. In other words, these helicopters were simply missing on the books. As well, in a recent report, the U.S. military lost some 44,000 troops across the globe in a country location labeled as unknown. Going even deeper into the rabbit hole, Mark Skidmore, a professor of economics at MSU specializing in public finance, found the Department of Defense and Housing and Urban Development may have spent as much as $21 trillion on mysterious items between 1998 and 2015. This is incomplete, but we have found $21 trillion in adjustments over that period. The biggest chunk is for the Army. We were able to find 13 of the 17 years, and we found about $11.5 trillion just for the Army, Skidmore said. In just this little preview, a hint has already been made about spending on the secret space programs, and the missing troops may be a part of such a purpose. Whether or not such information would be made public remains to be seen, but there appears to be, at least now, a formal acknowledgement that very significant spending was made on things that have not been acknowledged to the public. In general news, have you noticed how the Russian dossier and the so-called Russian collusion stories have now fallen so far into the background that they are hardly mentioned? Have you noticed how quickly the hype over Bannon's book has gone down to be replaced by the alleged comments made by President Trump that some countries are you-know-what? The media is trying to brand Trump as a racist, and they are jumping all over any piece of information they can to support the narrative that they have been told to support. I am not saying that Trump did or did not make the comments he was alleged to have made. Here is what I am observing, however. 1. To my knowledge, there is no audio recording of him using those exact words because no recording devices were present. 2. Even if he did use these words, what might this reveal? Could it have been yet another trap to see who would report this alleged comment to the media? Maybe that was one reason for making such a polarizing comment. He has done it before and survived. Haiti was one country that was specifically highlighted in the wake of the alleged comments, and let's explore this angle a bit for just a moment. The big Haiti earthquake in 2010 killed at least 100,000 people and arguably many more. Right after Haiti's major earthquake, both Bush and Clinton families collaborated to raise millions of dollars that seemingly disappeared. Wikipedia info on the collaboration suggests around $55 million was raised, probably to pay the 6-member board with 2 chairs and a CEO set up by the foundation. A Washington Post article reports the fund as having raised hundreds of millions of dollars for a hospital in Haiti that was never built 6 years after the earthquake. Even the Red Cross has been accused of stealing money. A National Public Radio article from June 3rd of 2015 reports the American Red Cross as losing almost $500 million. The people of Haiti never received it, it seems. The Canadian government at that time, led by former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, set aside at least $5 million Canadian dollars for the Red Cross to set up a hospital. Another hospital? Yet no hospital appears to have been built. Canada probably made a so-called donation to the Clinton Foundation. The London Daily Mail reported in March of 2015 that Hillary Clinton's brother landed a lucrative gold mining permit in Haiti after Bill Clinton helped the country recover from earthquake devastation. The only problem here is that the country never recovered, and all the money seems to have disappeared. So it would seem a lot of people were paid off to presumably secure a lucrative gold deal, or perhaps even oil. The fact becomes more meaningful when one considers how Russia and China especially have been significantly increasing their gold reserves in preparation for what soon appears to be the launch of the gold-backed petro-yuan. Was Clinton also trying to get a hold of Haiti oil that was reported to be present? Was Clinton perhaps also having children declared dead and then shipped away for human trafficking? Could arguments be made for these cases? Suddenly, this past week, we've got Trump, Bannon, and Haiti in the news. Here is some possibly relevant information from an article in Slate magazine by Jonathan Katz on September 22nd of 2016. He writes how the Clintons did not screw up Haiti alone. You helped, referring to those who are reading the article. Katz writes, here is a country, an island country of 10 million people where America's ultimate power couple invested considerable time and reputation. Here is a fragile state where each took turns implementing destructive policies whose highlights include overthrowing a presidential election. Bill Clinton in particular mixed personal relationships, business, and unaccountable power in ways that, if never exactly criminal, arouse the kind of suspicion that erodes public trust. No two individuals, including Haiti's own leaders, enjoyed more power and influence than the Clintons in the morass of the failed reconstruction following the deadly January 12, 2010 earthquake, when a troubled country managed to go from catastrophe to worse. Suddenly, people from Haiti are being interviewed in the media's attempt to portray Trump as a racist. The media is suddenly starting to take an interest in Haiti again. Why? Because Trump allegedly made a certain statement. Why this could be good news for Trump is that if the media does its job properly, and this is why the Russian dossier has died, the media is going to be forced either to report everything that really happened, including ties to Clinton and to gold, possibly to oil, and maybe more. The media would likely not have been interested in this story because they are more interested in taking Trump down. So Trump gives them a reason to start investigating him again, and this time the trail may take the media to Haiti. I could be wrong, but it seems that every time he makes a certain statement about something or some group of people, he is hooking the media into moving in a direction, thinking they can bury Trump, but end up discovering the truth. Or they realize that they were led there intentionally to reveal the connections with the Clintons and more. When dealing with this entity called the global cabal, I'll say it again, one cannot just simply make an assumption about the administration or about Trump himself. I personally do not like the strategy because I hate that people's feelings get hurt in the process. However, I also understand that those choosing to feel hurt are dealing with at least some issues in their own personal world on one or more levels. I also understand that people's feelings may need to be temporarily hurt in order to achieve a more meaningful goal when it comes to taking down this group of people that have been enslaving humanity and destroying our planet. With Haiti in the news, follow the money. This, too, is a trail that leads to even more evidence that buries the Clinton dynasty. Now, whether or not Trump did or did not make the particular comment, or whether or not it was a test to see who in the room was going to leak the comment to the media, or whether or not the comment was dropped to stir up another investigation leading to Haiti, well, I guess this remains to be seen. In disclosure-related news, Don Daniels, host of the Becoming a Cosmic Citizen program on Blog Talk Radio, recently interviewed Clifford Stone, a well-known whistleblower on the existence of our galactic families. According to Daniels, Sergeant Clifford Stone was groomed from an early age by the U.S. Army for his telepathic abilities. After later entering the Army, he was channeled into a special program with the cover of Nuclear Biological Chemical Rapid Response Team, but that was just the excuse to pull him away from his regular duties on a moment's notice and send him where needed for UFO crash retrieval missions, and especially for his ability to communicate telepathically with any surviving extraterrestrials captured by the Army. Clifford has many stories of his encounters with our star cousins, including the personal side communications he carried on with extraterrestrials while relaying the answers the commanding officers had requested. He says the officers always asked the wrong questions, and the private conversations were always much more illuminating. In a very short sample from the interview, Stone goes into the nature of the galactic families with whom he was in contact and why they are not to be feared. He also answers a question on the relevance of what many listeners will know as the Prime Directive, a rule of non-interference within a society that is not as evolved in every sense of the word. The audio clip is taken from approximately the 5 to 10 minute mark of that program.
I had contact with several different species, and I know the interaction, and I know the situation is they're not cartoon characters. Also, I know that from contact with them that I get the general consensus that the other species are similar in their relationships with their species and the interrelation with all the species. You're not going to hear me say anything about them being hostile. You'll hear me say something about they have rogue elements. Most of the people in the world don't feel that it's morally right to go out and rob a bank, but we have people who do that. Most of the people in the world don't feel that taking other human beings and enslaving them is something that is morally correct. Yet we have the number third organized crime in the entire world is trafficking in persons. The situation is people want to hit up on our visitors are evil. Our visitors are evil. You know what? If our visitors were evil as species, we would no longer exist. We would not have electric lights. We would not have TVs. We would have some type of control over us that did their bidding, their will, and their bidding and their will alone. They left us alone as free agents watching us. From the very beginning, they actually had interaction with early men. It was early man that said, these are gods. And they said, no, we're not gods. We're as mortal as you. Well, I'll put this as, they're as mortal as you and I. And they told the people, but they couldn't believe this because they had all of this magical ability until they saw a couple die. When that happened, they no longer believed him as God, but they had all of this power. So early man got this fear of these beings with all of this high intellect and technical know-how and technical capability. And when that happens, man gets that fear, and what man fears, he tries to destroy. And I hate to say it's human nature, but it is. Man has to go ahead and tell himself there's nothing in the darkness that wasn't there in the light. And the reason I want to premise it with this is that I know I got people out there listening to me. It's going to say, oh, this guy's crazy. He's talking about our visitors being good, and there have been bad experiences. Yes, there have. I know people who died, and if we get into that, forgive me, I'll get emotional. Because these were real people. I knew them. I was working with them. I was right there when things happened. But we were the children. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were doing with the technology. And it wasn't their fault. Ultimately, I learned one big key factor. We may fear them, but they have reason to fear us because we are the greater danger of the two. For that, but I had to get that in.
Absolutely. I mean, we're the rogue neighbor in this galactic neighborhood. We're the one that keeps firing off pot shots into the neighbor's backyard.
What's your thoughts on the Prime Directive on this kind of holding back and waiting till we're ready?
I believe the situation is that in the UFO field we always say there's no reason to keep all this classified because we can take it. Well, in reality, even the Brookings Institute came out and said we don't know what world reaction would be. You may even know, Dan, what I just quoted about early man's involvement in contact. You know that was from a document that the U.S. government had that existed. It was one of the introductions to the various different species we had here and how we had to be very careful in our interaction with our visitors. The whole situation is, if you're in the know, and even if you're ground level like I was, it was made clear to you, one, our visitors do not mean us any threat. They do not mean us any harm. That they are as curious about us as we are about them, and they are probably even more so because they find it horrific that we have wars and we can so easily kill our own kind and not have remorse about doing that. On a spiritual level, and I'm not talking religion here, on a spiritual level, they are much highly evolved and can live at peace with all the species in the universe. All the species achieve that, but before they can go ahead and become intergalactic travelers. Right now, I always say we are a world in quarantine because we don't know how to do that. We have the technology not only to visit other planets in our solar system, but to visit other planets that we know exist within 12 light years of planet Earth. We have that technology right now. That I know of. Can we extend beyond the 12 years? I don't know. But we have that. But we can't use it. And the reason we can't use it is because the thoughts of man, how can I put it, evil or criminal intent of man, our situation of not caring about the moral outcome of the technologies we use, but how we can go ahead and convert it into weapons to kill our fellow man. And they're not going to let us carry that mindset out beyond our own nearest galaxy. So, yeah, the whole situation is they believe that they need to observe us, but not to have that heavy interaction with us. But from time to time, there is that interaction. And I think you worked with the NSA, you saw documents that clearly indicated we were working with that interaction. The guy came out and talked about the unidentified aircraft that didn't belong to any country in the world. I've already had people come out and tell me that they're not sure whether he's on the up and up. Well, yeah, he is. He actually worked where he said. And I honestly believe that the program that he was talking about was a program that was put in place to where they could go ahead and sacrifice it if somebody is getting too close. And you know what? Some of the people in the field are getting very close to the truth.
The link to the full interview will be in the show transcript for this story. Dr. Carol Rosin was one of the original whistleblowers to appear when Dr. Stephen Greer announced his disclosure project to the world in May of 2001. Rosin was the one who received the words from Wernher von Braun on his deathbed that when all the cards had been played and the global cabal became too desperate, they would attempt to then play the alien invasion card. Now, a host of her own radio program, she recently interviewed Dr. Greer for almost 2 hours. In the first part of the interview, Rosin asked Greer what message is vital for Russian President Putin to hear, as well as the other leaders regarding the issue of the existence of our galactic families. In the first few minutes of the interview, Greer shares information that is relevant to two things that are currently happening. One is the alleged threat of nuclear war with North Korea, and the other is the audit currently underway at the Department of Defense in the U.S.
Well, I think one of the first things that has to be looked at is sort of the big picture of this subject, and that is that beginning in the post-World War II era, we, as well as our allies, have detected interplanetary vehicles that were concerned about our rapid development of armaments and weapons of mass destruction, and that this was very much quickened with the advent of the atomic bomb. And as you know from the Disclosure Project, military witnesses such as Colonel Diedrichson and others that are in the movie Unacknowledged. By the way, Unacknowledged, that documentary is the #1 documentary in the world on iTunes and Netflix right now. And around 100,000 people a day are viewing it. I think that if you look at the content, it just touches on this briefly, but that the civilizations that have been apparently observing the Earth for quite some time, some would think since ancient times, have become very alarmed at the human proclivity to go from cannons and muskets and things of this sort to weapons that could destroy the entire planet and biosphere. And also, they're very concerned about the collapse of the biosphere as a viable environment for the evolution of intelligent life, i.e. Humans, which are here on this planet, although there are other intelligent life forms, maybe more so than we are, such as dolphins and what have you. But we're the dominant species, and certainly we're the species that's destroying the environment rapidly. And that the twin concerns that the ETs apparently have been expressed in a number of ways where, for example, in one incident in the early 80s in Minot, North Dakota, in the Malmstrom Air Force Base in this area, we have multiple military personnel with top secret documents that have come forward showing that the ETs took offline and rendered unlaunchable upwards of 20 intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear weapons on them that were hot missiles. These were actual armed, ready to go to hit the Soviet Union, which is now, of course, Russia. And I think that what they were saying, and the men that I interviewed, such as Captain Salas and others, said that the feeling they got from it was that the ETs were trying to say, please don't destroy this beautiful planet, but if you do, we could intervene and stop a massive all-out launch. And they showed that ability quite extraordinarily that particular morning. I think that this brings up an issue where this is an interlocking concern that people all over the world, leaders in Russia, China, United States, and every other country that I've met with need to understand, and that is that we are being viewed as a civilization that has gone off the rails in the sense that we not only have the ability to destroy all life on Earth with weapons, but the way we're living on the Earth with 18th century, 19th century industrial fossil fuels and oil and gas and coal is destroying the biosphere, which is also an existential threat. And so those are the two big existential threats that these civilizations are seeing occur, and they're very concerned about it. Now, there's a third one that, of course, in a lot of ways trumps, and no pun intended, the others, and that is since the 1940s, there has been trillions of dollars, now estimated by Michigan State University professor that there's $21.5 trillion that have been basically embezzled from the U.S. coffers to go into various military, intelligence, and related programs over the years. Trillion. That's our entire national debt, by the way. And that has caused there to be spin-offs, let's call them, of deep, covert, unacknowledged special access projects, or USAP. And these unacknowledged special access projects are so deeply covert that it's very rare that you meet a general at the Pentagon or a senator or a president who has access to them or control over them. So it's a runaway, dangerous situation, and that is part of what the expose is. And there's much more, by the way, information on this in the book named Unacknowledged that you can get at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you want to get your books, or our website, which is SiriusDisclosure.com, SIRIUS disclosure.com. Now, this last thing is really critical because what people always forget, they're always fighting the last war, and they're always thinking of, the Cold War and the nuclear problem. But, meanwhile, while all that on the surface was going on, being reported in the mainstream media, what has been developed within, certainly in the U.S., and I know this for a personal fact, are technologies that are way more advanced than a nuclear weapon, that can reach out into space from Earth or from an aircraft in our atmosphere and strike objects in space and strike objects in our atmosphere that are of extraterrestrial origin. That is a huge crisis that should be at the front table of the Security Council of the United Nations and every other country. We have multiple witnesses who are military bona fide sources. I have now over 850 of them that have provided the information on how these systems operate, where they're located, and how effective they've become since 1947, when the first one was apparently deployed in what looked like a radar dome at Roswell, New Mexico, that caused those 3 ET craft to crash.
Third connection is the event the other day in Hawaii where a missile was allegedly launched. Assuming that story to be true, and assuming that the Galactics have intervened to shut down nuclear weapons previously, there is the possibility that if a missile was truly launched, then it was, very likely, interfered with. Just a few of the many, many dots that need to be connected and joined to get a better understanding of how things are really unfolding upon our planet at this time. The full interview, like the other, is available in the show transcript for this story. Over to some technology-related news now. In the past, CVN has reported on several types of flying cars that are beginning to appear on the scene. At this year's Consumer Electronics Show, CES 2018 in Las Vegas, another drone-style taxi was presented to the North American audience for the first time. Sean O'Kane, reporting for The Verge, goes behind the scenes with a bit more information and why big companies are lining up to get this type of technology out sooner rather than later.
Hey everybody, this is Sean from The Verge, and we are backstage at the rehearsal for Intel's big CES 2018 keynote, and as you can see, I'm standing in front of a gigantic flying car. This is the Volocopter. It's an 18-rotor electric helicopter that will hopefully someday become an autonomous vehicle, something that you could just hop in and take to wherever you need to go. Right now, it's still in the testing phase, and the reason it's here at CES this year is that Intel's been working with Volocopter to integrate all the technology that it has from its drone division into this to basically get this in the air a lot faster. I've never actually been in a helicopter before, and this seems like it would be more terrifying than a helicopter. Although, when we watched it fly on stage, it was very calm, it was very quiet, and the video that they showed of Intel CEO Brian Krzanich flying it in Volocopter's headquarters, he seemed to enjoy it, and it seemed to be a relatively controlled flight to begin with. So, I don't know, maybe it would actually be pretty fun. Let's back up a second. We've actually seen a lot of Volocopter over the last few years. The company hasn't been shy about sharing videos of its radical vehicle while they were testing it. It recently got a huge funding round from Daimler, and the company even struck a deal to bring the air taxis to Dubai. But the Volocopter has never flown stateside. This is our first good look at the company and its air taxi in North America. And they didn't just bring the prototype that flew on stage at the Intel keynote. They also brought the production version, which is what could actually shuttle passengers someday soon. Okay, so now we're here with CEO of Volocopter, Florian Reuter, and what are we standing in front of? This is different from what you're showing off on stage with Intel, right?
Yes, so this is the Volocopter 2X. It's our latest model. The doors is the most obvious, change to the overall structure that we've made. We've set the entire rotor level a bit higher. That's, to have more passive safety. We now have more room inside the fuselage, and of course we have much more room for the battery compartment.
And where are you at for performance and endurance right now?
So with the 2X we will reach 30 minutes of flight, which still isn't where people want it to be eventually, but it is what we can live with, based on the current limitations of battery technology.
What is the target for Volocopter to start those kinds of programs?
So the Volocopter really is designed to be used as an air taxi inside urban centers. So we're not targeting, let's say, longer distances. We want to cover an urban center as good as possible and as efficient as possible. So I believe that with an endurance of about an hour, we should be safe to do every relevant route in most of the megacities that we want to apply this technology to.
I've been told by some of the people at Intel that one of the benefits of working with electric motors and building this around electric technology as opposed to a helicopter which has many more moving parts and is far more complex is that something like this should be actually very easy to fly even if somebody doesn't have experience in a helicopter or something that requires a pilot's license. Does that mean I could really hop in this thing and actually fly it without any experience like that?
Absolutely. It is so intuitive to fly. You can put a 5-year-old in there without any explanation. It'll know how to maneuver this vehicle. It is so simple.
Yeah. So why don't you show me what you've got here in the production version?
So welcome inside. What you see now is, you have a lot of space, very comfortable to sit in. This is the autonomous version, so you don't have the joystick here. In the regular piloted version, you would have the joystick here that you can then command the directions in. This is where you would usually find the emergency handle for the full aircraft parachute.
Right.
So again, from a psychological perspective.
I saw that in the prototype. Explain how a parachute works on a thing with 18 rotors.
So actually, that's the neat thing about the design of the Volocopter. We don't have a rotor covering the center piece. So if the parachute shoots out, it of course is wired, in a way throughout the entire fuselage. So it will hold the entire fuselage, the cabins, with the passenger inside. And actually, it's a ballistic rocket that's just being shot out in order to inflate the parachute as fast as possible, and then it will, descend the entire vehicle in a safe manner.
Volocopter's far from the only company working on air taxis or flying cars or whatever you want to call them. This might seem like a crazy technology, but there are huge companies like Uber and Airbus and plenty of startups that are soaking up money to try and make all this happen. The whole idea with this partnership that Intel announced this week is that, first off, it's already been going. They've been doing all this work with Volocopter to integrate their flight control software, their motor controllers, stuff that they've gotten their expertise, they've cut their teeth on with all the drone stuff that we've seen here this week. And they've integrated all that into this and helped Volocopter really just sort of move the schedule up on this fantastic idea. It doesn't mean that we're going to have flying cars and flying taxis tomorrow or next week or in the next 5 years, but Volocopter is going to get there a lot faster with help from a company like Intel. And on Intel's side, they get to work with a company that's doing flying cars. I mean, like, that's a cool thing to have in your roster of companies that you work with when you're a company like Intel. And you're constantly competing with other companies that are also doing cool stuff like autonomous cars and graphics chips and all this stuff. So I think this is the perfect example of what Intel's trying to show off at CES this year, which is, hey, our stuff is really powerful, but look at the cool stuff that it can power.
Among some of the other big topics for the show, this includes 3D printing, artificial intelligence, robotics, digital health, self-driving cars, and virtual or augmented reality technologies. An article on the Duran website from January 14th explores a few other futuristic car and plane designs that are being worked on in different countries at this time. These include one that has been called Terrafugia, which CVN has reported on before, and also one Aeromobile, which is based in Slovakia. Other than the fact that time itself seems to be speeding up, the introduction of certain new technologies seems to be coming forth at an accelerated rate. Could this mean that perhaps certain other suppressed technologies may be on the horizon that can clean our air, our water, or our land? Could there be health technologies coming that have long been predicted? I'll look at this next in Health. Finally, in health-related news, as I hinted moments ago, many technologies have been militarized or otherwise suppressed because of the impact it would have on the profits of those who have been controlling the global economy for this current lifetime of all of us. Back in 2013, an article on Wired.com by G.W. Schultz estimated that there were secrecy orders on at least 5,000 inventions. Other sources have estimated this to be closer to or above 6,000. It is believed that there are many technologies that are capable of transforming our planet almost literally overnight if they were made available to humanity and the planet. One piece of technology that has been floated around in the past from various sources claiming to have access to futuristic technologies is a healing chamber that is capable of healing injuries, ailments, and physical challenges, but can also allegedly regenerate limbs and even reprogram one's DNA to make one physically younger again. One such piece of technology has been given the name MedBed. A source who identifies himself as Jared Rand shared more about this particular device in a conference call interview recently. The following audio is taken from approximately the 12-minute mark to the 28-minute mark.
I know that a lot of people are interested in knowing about the MedBed technology. And that technology has been around for quite some time, so it's not some out of the clear blue new technology. It's just been kept from the human race for a very long time, and it is not human technology. It's off-worlder technology. You see, the body leaves a resonance, a vibrational frequency of all the organs, even organs that have been gone, taken away through either radiation or surgery or whatever, damage, arms, limbs, whatever. So that memory's still there. If you talk to people that are amputees that have lost appendages, and they sometimes say that it's almost like it's there, but it's not. The atomization process, when the body lays into it, there are algorithms and there is a computer database, and it actually identifies your DNA in your body, and it does a complete internal analysis. And I think the best way to explain that is that when, I'm sure a lot of you have done MRIs and You get in a big, huge tunnel, and it pulls you in, and it does a resonating scan on your internal organs and functions to see if there's tumors or whatever happening. This is a little bit different. It's similar from the standpoint of scanning, but what it actually does is it shows the internal operation very clearly in a three-dimensional format of live time, how your organs, where your organs are, how they're functioning. It analyzes your blood, and it also depicts any damage or illness or disease within the body that is not normal. And, of course, any disease is not normal. So the database picks it up, and then it will come back through voice communication. It'll ask you basically, do you want a full reatomization of your body? Or do you just want this one area taken care of? And it'll give you that option. And you just basically say, I want the entire body reatomized. I want my entire body reatomized. So you lay there, you go into a deep sleep. There's no injection. There's no needles or anything. The reatomizer runs over the body. You have, this involves tachyon particles, tachyon energy, and also plasma energy. The plasma energy, since everything is a vibrational frequency, everything is plasma. Everything is plasma. If you wanted to replicate a banana out of thin air, you're going to have the ability to do that, again, with a computerized database and basically asking the computer to whip you up a banana or water that tastes like bananas. It's just up to you. And you'll immediately have it. The soil, the atmosphere, the water, everything is plasma energy. Everything in the universe is plasma energy. It's just done in different form through vibrational frequency. So the idea of the replicator is that whatever you want, you'll get. You want a new set of clothes, you'll have a new set of clothes. All derived and drawn from the plasma energy. And that's how it's reconfigured, molecularly structured and identified through the computer and the database of what you really want. What are you looking for? Getting back to the medbed looks at the body and corrects imperfections. With the medbed, your body is healthy and new again, but your mind isn't because you've lived those years. And you will be counseled on becoming much more aware of naturopathic, Ayurvedic, different crystallology, the different applications of how you can keep yourself healthy naturally, where you aren't taking pills. As far as these pharmaceuticals are concerned, you're taking organic systems and putting them into your body and keep your body healthy. Because after the bed, do you want to go into the same habits? Do you want to go through all that again? Period. Because you can't say, okay, well, I'm now 30, 25, 40, whatever, but I've changed my mind. I want to go back to the age I was. And that won't happen. It's a permanent decision, period. You can go back, but you can't go forward. In other words, you can't get older. That's where the medbed plays in role. People ask, how soon can that be available? Well, I'm sure all of you know on this call that there are forces out there, even hidden. We're not talking about the big ones because they're being taken down, but we're talking about the mini ones that are in towns and cities and different villages across America that are not good people. They're not good. They're miniature versions of D.C. And so what happens is that they try to stop you and then do bad things. So we have to be very covert on the deployment of the medbeds. You just can't go out there and start putting them out there like suckers. Here's a lollipop, have a good day. And we have to have crews, and we have to have manufacturing, high-level security manufacturing facilities with an actual clean line of assembly, which means it's totally medicinal clean room to put the parts together and to get them working. We have plans for an infrastructure that we put together over the years to introduce the technology to, and there's a lot of people, obviously. Everybody knows somebody, loved one or a friend that could really use it like yesterday. And the whole idea of that is to get to the serious, the ones that are really bad, like 4-stage cancer, you're going to die in 2 weeks, to people that, have severe forms of diabetes. We got a long list of people that we have to tend to, but we have to do it securely and safely. And so we put together a plan in order to carry that out and to get to as many people as we can so that we can actually go to certain areas on the planet and then bring people to a certain area and start affecting the treatments for people, and to have enough units so that we can do many people at one time.
A transcript of roughly the same information can be found in an article posted on the disclosurenews.it website, and the link will be in the show transcript. Rand points out several concerns. One is obviously the threat from big medicine and big pharma that do not want this technology made available because it would essentially kill their business and their profits. A second concern is the risk in introducing this technology to the general public, because human nature will cause people to fight greedily to receive a treatment such as this. One only has to see how humans fight at stores to get one of a few remaining toys to understand the greedy nature of many humans. A third concern that Rand also pointed out are the risks of making oneself younger. A few movies have loosely taken on the topic in different forms, but making a choice like this comes with real consequences, especially where other family members are concerned. Although the most urgent cases are tended to first, are there perhaps ethical concerns? Should people be given some kind of qualifying exam before being told about the technology to see where their hearts are and to see what their true intentions are in wanting this benefit? Personally, I think people who have demonstrated or who have a demonstrated record of human and planetary service should be within the first 3 or 4 waves of people to receive this technology. Those who do not have a track record will have to perform a contract of service for humanity and the planet in order to become eligible to receive this kind of healing. Can this technology, in theory, heal someone who was a killer or a pedophile, for example? There are many ethical questions that need to be discussed and considered when approaching this technology. As exciting as it is, I understand the risks and also the rewards that this one technology alone can bring to humanity. The question is whether we can best use the technology to empower the best leaders of a new Earth, so the technology may be honored for what it is, instead of merely allowing people to regress and continue poor lifestyle choices or crimes. In the show transcript, links to a couple of other videos on the technology will be posted. Just before I get to this week's final words, I would like to congratulate Jordan Sather for reaching 100,000 supporters within his first year of his form of journalism. It is a style and a niche that has worked very well for him, and he seems to be very deserving of the support he is receiving. As far as I am concerned, it matters not who is the face or the voice, as long as there are more people standing up and speaking out for the highest good of all. I wish him every success, and may you all continue to support him in all ways, including financially, if it will help keep him going. Well done, and congratulations to you, Jordan. In this week's final words, have you been noticing how the media is focusing only on stories that serve more to separate humanity and keep humans in fear, but also more focused on their debts, perhaps? I'm shaking my head at how so many are getting drawn into these stories and coming to various conclusions based on one single incident or story without considering both the bigger picture and the bigger picture. Earlier, you heard my thoughts about Trump's comment and a bit about the geopolitical situation. I'd like to comment on something that is loosely similar, but on a very different subject. The media is playing its role in attempting to keep humans separated, in fear, in debt, and sick. As it turns out, they are also trying to keep humans alone. An article on the LifeSiteNews.com website from January 10th reports that fewer young men in the U.S. want to get married than ever, while the desire for marriage is rising among young women, according to the Pew Research Center. Pew recently found that the number of women 18 to 34 saying that having a successful marriage is one of the most important things rose from 28% to 37% since 1997. The number of young adult men saying the same thing dropped from 35% to 29% in the same time. Pew's findings have caught the attention of one U.S. writer who maintains that feminism, deeply entrenched in every segment of the culture, has created an environment in which young men find it more beneficial to simply opt out of coupledom entirely. Suzanne Venker's article, The War on Men, which appeared on the website of Fox News in late November, has become a lodestone for feminist writers who have attacked her position that the institution of marriage is threatened, not enhanced, by the supposed gains of the feminist movement over the last 50 years. She points out that for the first time in U.S. history, the number of women in the workforce has surpassed the number of men, while more women than men are acquiring university degrees. The problem? This new phenomenon has changed the dance between men and women, Venker wrote, with feminism pushing them out of their traditional role of breadwinner, protector, and provider, and divorce laws increasingly creating a dangerously precarious financial prospect for the men cut loose from marriage. Men are simply no longer finding any benefit in it. As a writer and researcher into the trends of marriage and relationships, Venker said she has accidentally stumbled upon a subculture of men who say, in no uncertain terms, that they're never getting married. Venker is also quoted as saying that when I ask them why, the answer is always the same. Women aren't women anymore. Feminism, which teaches women to think of men as the enemy, has made women angry and defensive, although often unknowingly. Now the men have nowhere to go. It is precisely this dynamic, women good, men bad, that has destroyed the relationship between the sexes. Yet somehow men are still to blame when love goes awry. Men are tired of being told that there's something fundamentally wrong with them, tired of being told if women aren't happy, it's men's fault. I have a lot of personal feelings relating to this story and seeing how it has impacted my own life path. However, there are at least 2 points that are either not addressed or they are not addressed fully, as they perhaps deserve to be. The article is focusing on the growing gender separation. The media focuses on the growing gender separation. Very few, however, seem to acknowledge the very essence of what marriage has become, and one of the underlying reasons for why it has become this. I personally am struggling to see any value and purpose in marriage. Now, please note that I am making a very specific distinction between marriage and commitment to a partner, spiritual or otherwise. In our current world, driven by economics and protected by commercial rules given the force of law, a marriage really is nothing more than a glorified state and church-sanctioned commercial agreement. Keep in mind that couples have to apply for a marriage license to be married. Why is this necessary? Licensing is where the government takes away one's rights and then sells them back to the individual as a privilege bound by commercial rules given the force of law. Our governments participate in the criminality of the fractional reserve banking model, supporting the debt-based and stress-filled economic reality that eventually drives couples apart. As the economics drives them apart, lawyers and judges get wealthier, settling the disputes because of an infinite number of commercial rules that are applied to couples when neither of them consented to those commercial rules in the first place. When I do life counseling with people, I describe to them how they may be following one life path, and if one is not truly happy being oneself, then one is not likely to meet the most compatible partners along that path. They begin substituting dates and partners along that path, thinking that a partner will magically heal what's missing in the individual. However, this is rarely the case, but there are miracles if the individual has truly seen the pattern of what he or she was creating and is ready to create something different. Until that moment, however, one continues to drift from relation to relation, not realizing that the relations are failing because one is not very happy with oneself in that moment. Governments and the media are overhyping the things that make us different: race, culture, language, gender, orientation, religion, and many others. Very subtly incorporated into this mixture is status, income, class, personal wealth, or possessions. Throw in now all the hype about sexual harassment and sexual assault allegations, And perhaps it's not a surprise that good men are too afraid to go up and try to express interest in a woman. It is perhaps also for the same reason that good women will not take the initiative with men, because they are afraid of being harassed and or assaulted. A culture of fear has been created, and the media has played a big role in this. There are good men wanting to find good women and vice versa. There are insecure and harmful men and women who look for partners to prey upon their energy. As James Redfield has noted, the root of all conflict in our world comes from the competition for precious human energy. Is it better to jump from one unfulfilling relation to another while never addressing the root issues within oneself? Or is it better to remain unhappily single while trying to find out one's path with greater clarity? Or perhaps even, is it just better to remain happily single? I'm not sure there is a right or wrong to that question. It comes down to whether or not one is able to live with oneself, with whichever choice was made. If one can live with having multiple unfulfilling partners, then perhaps this is part of the spiritual growth of both souls involved, until one or both consciously choose to create something else more meaningful. Both the church and the state have contributed to the destruction of love, purely and simply, between consenting partners. Most humans are getting so bent out of shape on the emotions of race, gender, income, status, class, caste, orientation, culture, and religion, defending these criteria of separation instead of just simply standing together in unity for love between consenting humans and allowing them to commit to their partner in the most meaningful and life-honoring ways that suit the people involved. Governments and the church have become too invasive into the private lives of humans. This was done by intentional design. It will only be undone by the intentional design of awakened and aware humans who are ready to speak up and hold elected officials, civic leaders, and businesses accountable for what they are contributing to. I wish it was easier to talk to women, for example, and I'm sure there are women saying the same thing about men without having to worry about being so diplomatically correct for fear of being misjudged. In today's world, one wrong word or action can lead to someone getting hurt, fired, arrested, and possibly even killed. Someone with innocent and good intentions gets punished and hurt. At the root of all this, we can only look to government and the churches for the creation of this separation. Fighting with each other about specific criteria of separation does nothing to heal the situation and only further serves to perpetuate the control, fear, debt, and separation that we have already unknowingly consented to. I think I'm going to create a new hashtag root of conflict, to be used anytime anyone is choosing to call out something at the very root levels of our society: governance, business, and religion. Maybe this is something that starts getting people talking. Create a wonderful week until our next Moment of Now. So, that is a sample of the unfolding higher consciousness news around the world this week. Cosmic Vision News is broadcast weekly, and a transcript of this broadcast with all supporting links are published in the show summary on the CosmicVisionNews.com website. CVN can be followed on numerous social websites, including Minds, Unseen, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm Jeffrey West, reminding you that if you don't make peace with your past, it will keep showing up in your present. Until our next Moment of Now, may you be guided and protected in your service to humanity and our planet. Namaste.